French been fighting for 4 years. They say just 4 minutes up against these fortified German lines and we look just like them. Yeah, like an army of living dead.
Those cutscenes before a round of operations are really, really well done. It's always nice to have a sense of reason why you're doing what you're doing in Battlefield, and of course, that's what operations is all about. You're actually playing out real battles from World War I, and those soldiers' voices talking about the battle that you're about to go into do make it feel very real. By the way, if my voice sounds weird today, I caught the man flu yesterday. Totally convenient, considering it's the release week for Battlefield 1. Perhaps when I needed my voice the most, I'm convinced Jack Frags gave it to me. We spent a night together in a hotel recently, and I swear he sabotaged me. He had it last week, and now it's my turn. You're just going to have to put up with it, unfortunately. Now, we're taking part in the Operation Conquer Hell today, fighting for the American forces attempting to push the German resistance back beyond the train yard, past the chateau here, and then on into the Argonne Forest. The whole round lasted about 45 or 50 minutes in total, and it was a really well-balanced fight as well. Neither team felt too powerful, and with the help of the behemoths on a couple of occasions, we were able to put up a really good fight against the Germans. And for the majority of the footage in the background today, I'll be running as a Harlem Hellfighter soldier, using the trench gun and the 1911 to take people down. I spoke a little bit about operations earlier in the week in my video about the Martini Henry rifle, but rather than praising it to the high heavens today, I do want to pick out some of its faults, and they've become more apparent the more rounds that I've actually played. And I want to offer some opinion into how DICE can adapt and tweak this game's mechanics to make it even better. It is without a doubt the best game mode in Battlefield 1, but that doesn't mean it comes without drawbacks. Having played about 20 hours of the game now since the trial launched, I've tried to really focus on playing operations and get through as many of them as I can, so I've got a really good feeling for it, and so I hope my opinions here are as rounded as possible. Firstly, I want to talk about how operations is accessed through the menus, how you join the game mode, and how it's advertised to players in the UI. During the trial, the operations were basically a ghost town on PC. For me, it seemed most people were joining rounds of Rush or Conquest on the new maps that were available, and likely they were using the server browser to achieve that. Now that the game has opened up to more people, there are more rounds that you can jump into, but for me, the way you start an operation is currently not very easy or a very satisfying experience. Operation rounds, or the servers running those rounds, are not listed in the server browser, and for me, that kind of ring fences the game mode somewhat, especially as it's in its own separate menu from Quick Match as well, so it is entirely on its own. The intention may be to highlight the mode as more of an experience than just one game mode, so I can see why it's been separated, but when the matchmaker within operations is either putting me in empty servers with maybe a few other people based on my skill level, or it's putting me into half-complete operations where my team is already on the brink of losing, it does make me wonder why it's not simply in the server browser as well. It's doing nothing different than if I were to just pick from a list and join a random server. One other point based on the menus and joining the operations, I'd like to see a little bit more information on the operations screen when you're selecting which one you want to play. How about having a small bit of info highlighting how many current ongoing matches there are for each operation, or highlighting to me which one of the operations has servers wanting to start that have free space in them, so I can just join in and get straight into a battle. At the moment, it's a little bit of luck of the draw if I join a good match at all, but as more people start to play, I think having a bit more info on that page will help people decide if they want to join an operation or not. Just as with the server browser, people like to see how many others are already in a server before they join and get their act together. That experience of getting into an operation at the moment isn't perfect. It may be due to the lack of players, and we are still in the early access phase of Battlefield 1, so things may improve by the time we come to the full release on the 21st, but at the moment, even without there being that many players there, I would expect the matchmaker to put me into some decent servers, at least ones that are half full, ready to go. Not one where we're 3 tickets away from losing the operation and I then get a loss on my statistics. Secondly, I want to talk about the gameplay, and this is perhaps where I have less of an issue overall, and maybe that's because the gameplay in Operations is very, very exciting, but nevertheless, I think it's important to highlight where changes and fixes might be needed to improve the overall experience. I'll start with the elephant in the room, the behemoths. They're like Marmite at the moment, if you believe the in-game chat. Some people love them and some people hate them, and you'll find the majority of the time it's the defenders complaining when the behemoth comes in. And I do think they have a point about that. For me, a behemoth is there to help a struggling attacking team or a defending team if they got rinsed on the first map. Why is it then that the attackers get a behemoth after they lose their first battalion? They aren't really struggling at that point, and they still have 2/3 of their reinforcements left to utilise. Evidence, if you need it, are the comments in the in-game chat during the cutscenes between each lost battalion. Most people moan that the behemoth comes in way too soon. In my opinion, the behemoth should only come in with the last battalion that the attackers have left. That way, it's the final push to take sectors and win the round or progress into the next map. At the moment, as soon as the attackers get the behemoth, 9 times out of 10, they will push through the current sector and make a lot of headway with the massive firepower that they have. The defenders get crushed by the cannons, the AA units, and the machine gun fire, and it really just doesn't feel like fun anymore. If the behemoth came with the last battalion, that would emphasise to the attackers that this is truly their last chance, and the defenders that they only have one more push to make before they win and stop the attackers moving forwards. Something else that I'd like to see changed is the way the battalions work within the game mode. At the moment, if the attackers fail to take a sector, a new battalion of reinforcements will push up and the attackers will once again attempt to take that sector. This happens twice, and if the attackers fail to take a sector with their last battalion, then the defenders win the operation. Depending on how far into the operation the attackers get, this can be rather frustrating, as you may have just pushed into the second map and suddenly you fail at the first sector as you don't have the reinforcements you need. How about this? If the attackers successfully take the first map, and perhaps the second map on Oil of Empires, that does have 3 maps instead of the standard 2, and they lost battalions during that map, the attackers are awarded an extra battalion. I find that a lot of the time, when you progress to the next map, the attackers are severely lacking in reinforcements. It would be nice to see that they get something for pushing the defenders all the way back into a full retreat. That cutscene between the 2 maps is there to signify movement and change of time or date, I assume, so surely the attackers would have gathered some more resources by then, and if you look at it from a story point of view, this will elongate the mode further. Is that the point of Operations? I definitely think it is. DICE have actually said the point of Operations is to have extended playtime within Battlefield 1 and draw out the battle to upwards of an hour's playtime. So if that's what you want, on some of these larger operations or even moving into the second map, perhaps giving the attackers another battalion will extend the game mode and make it more entertaining if you're getting towards the final battalion. And my final point when it comes to gameplay, and this one is for Oil of Empires, I feel the attacking forces should start with more than 3 battalions on this operation. They have a whole extra map to push through, and 3 battalions with 150 soldiers each is really not enough to push through several sectors per map. Perhaps starting with 4 battalions would be a good change. I'm not sure pushing it any higher would actually improve gameplay any further for the attackers, and it would probably only make it even harder for the defenders. In my opinion, I think these changes would be of benefit to the game mode overall. Now obviously we aren't going to be able to test any of these suggestions. We don't have the luxury of a community test environment for Battlefield 1 yet, but theoretically, these suggestions would solve my biggest gripes with a game mode that really is already standing head and shoulders above the rest in this game. This Operation Conquer Hell is really good fun, and Iron Walls as well with the Italian Alps is great too. As with all big AAA titles, it is the first few days that expose the tweaks that need addressing, and I think DICE need to make a few here to Operations to make it even better. Thanks very much for watching and for putting up with my horrific voice throughout this video. Let me know your thoughts down below in the comments. I will be reading and replying to as many as I can. But until next time, my name is Westie, and I'll catch you guys in the next video.